All right, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us tonight. Just a few house rules, we'd like to share with you. First, this is a college campus. Please be respectful of our space and all individuals here. Heckling, harassment, and hate speech towards anyone or any group is not tolerated, and the individuals in violation will be removed immediately. The other thing to remember, no congregation of groups in the parking lot after the event has ended. So we're going to try to disperse after the event, and get going. So, all right, exciting times. It's election year. This is what I like. I'm all about that. I'm Alex Trevino. I handle public affairs and the media for some clients at Public Alliance. It's a full-scale public relations agency here in San Antonio. As your master of ceremonies, I have the unique honor to facilitate this town hall and debate, a process that involves political discourse on a topic and really of particular issues of importance to the Deputy Sheriff's Association of Bexar County. So a lot of hot topics to cover tonight. During the debate, you'll hear arguments with opposing viewpoints that are put forward, and candidates will be given set amounts of time to argue their point of view. The event will last approximately 2 hours. The moderator during the debate will be Yami Viethin, an award-winning reporter with Fox 29 San Antonio. Yami is a graduate of UTSA, where she majored in political science and minored in communications. She worked on several political campaigns, actually, before she became a big TV star. So we have a lot in common because I'm also a former reporter. And Yami, it's great to have you this evening. I'd like to present Ron Took, president of the Deputy Sheriff's Association of Bexar County. Ron began his career with the Bexar County Sheriff's Office in 1990 and sworn in as president on May 12th. Welcome to the stage, Ron. Are you here?
I'm here.
All right.
I just want to thank everybody for coming on behalf of the Deputy Sheriff's Association. I see I got some family sitting right up front there. I love you guys. Thank you. We're all on the same side, and together we can conquer anything. Divide and conquer is now what we got going on here, and I love you all for showing up. Thank you so much. There's no secret, crime's on the rise. Everybody has a different vision of what should happen. We all know that we want to be safe in our communities. We want to be able to go to the grocery store without getting robbed. We want to be able to come home and make sure that our house is still intact when we get there. And crime and punishment is a very big issue. It's very important. I'm going to throw this thing away because I really hate these things. It's very important that we as a community come together. There's no other thing in my 32 years of doing this job. Fighting each other does not work. We all, when I had the blessing of talking to TC and his family down there, after about 5 minutes, we all figured out we're on the same page. We all believe in the same stuff. Doesn't matter where we come from, what side of town, north, south, east, west, wherever. We're from out of town when we move here, whatever. We all have the same goals, and that's public safety and the right to live free. So without that, we're nothing. Without each other, we're absolutely nothing. So this is not my time. This is the candidates' time to shine, let you know what they've got going on and what they think. And thank you very much for coming.
Our first candidate, endorsed by DSABC, will speak and answer a couple questions from Yami. Will be Commissioner Tommy Calvert. Tommy is a member of the Bexar County Commissioners Court, and he's running for re-election to the Bexar County Commissioners Court to represent Precinct 4. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you all for coming tonight. It's good to see everyone. Let me thank Ron and Renee and all of the Deputy Sheriff's Association members for putting this forum together. Let me thank Yami also for the questions. I'm eager to get to the questions, so I'll have a few brief comments and then we'll get to questions. Every 4 years, Precinct 4 gets to pick its best and brightest to represent all of us before the Commissioners Court. There are some very important issues, but among the top that we face as commissioners are crime and justice. I am very proud that I changed the tone of the Commissioners Court with respect to our deputy sheriffs. That was a tone of antagonism before I came to the Commissioners Court, and 7 years ago, we passed the largest pay increase of any law enforcement agency in the state of Texas, a 15.5% pay increase in Bexar County, which was needed because of years of neglect from the court with respect to the wages of our deputy sheriffs. Even though that was the largest one at that time, we beat that in this last negotiation. We have raised the wages another 20.5% for a total of 41% wage increases, 136 new sheriff's deputies on our streets, and I'm very proud of that record. The first sheriff substations have been built and created. Very proud of that legacy. When I came, and I was looking before I was even elected, I saw the portables that we had for our officers way in the deep far south side. Your captains didn't even have room to put their files, and I thought, this is atrocious. And so we have constructed and opened the brand new sheriff substations, which have increased response time. Together, we have established a new SMART unit to respond to mental health crises. And since then, that SMART unit has had sterling results. We did that 1 year before the city of San Antonio. Our sheriff's deputies helped lead the way for better responses. We've also done things in the community together, whether it's cleaning up areas like Camelot, where we got the trash bill passed, the crime reduced in this very worst area in the precinct by 53%. Dealing with the broken window syndrome, if you will. And so I'm very proud. We not only lowered crime in one of the worst patrol areas, 830, but we also were able to reduce the calls for animal services by 75%, and the calls for illegal dumping were reduced by 74%. We won a national award for that record of fighting crime and helping the community in Denver this past year, the National Association of Counties, for those sterling results. Retention is our big challenge as we go forward. And there's a couple of ideas that I want to work together with the deputy sheriffs on to increase the years of service that we have, where we're losing too many officers in years 2 and 3. I think we need to talk about retention programs, just much like the military has implemented, that if you sign up to work for the Sheriff's Association, for the Sheriff's Department, that we will help you with a down payment on a home if you give us 5 years, or additional tuition reimbursement if you dedicate years of service to the county. I think those kinds of things will help us keep our officers in Bexar County working for our Sheriff's Department as we continue to work on increasing wages, which were neglected for so long before I became commissioner. We'll continue to work with you on raising wages, on working conditions to be improved, but you know you have a friend in Precinct 4 and an open door to help move this community forward. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today.
And I don't know if the mic's on. Can you all hear me? There we go. I'm loud. A voter asked, recently I called 911 for a medical emergency. I was transferred 3 times and put on hold while my mother was having a seizure. The staff were very helpful, but because I live in an unincorporated area, I had to be switched from SAPD to BCSO. It's happened to me multiple times. I like your question. How will you make calling for help easier for those who live in the county?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. That's just not an acceptable thing to happen. And so we need to look very deeply at the technologies that we're using to better pinpoint those areas that need to be immediately transferred, not just with SAPD. I mean, we've got Bexar Metro 911 that is supposed to be getting those calls put to where they need to go. So I think we have to look at the technology, to make sure that it is properly transferring the calls. I think we also need to look at the personnel and make sure that those things are being handled in the fastest way that we can. We're supporting their center in the Chavano Park area. We also have a redundant center in the county. And we need to make sure it works as intended. So those are just not acceptable, and we'll get over there to see what more we need to do under the hood.
I want to ask you another question. We recently did a story at the station regarding overtime and a young woman that had to stay while her children were in school and she had to pick them up. The mandatory overtime is a huge issue for all deputies. And I know you constantly, all of you talk about it because we all sit there and listen to these meetings. What can be done? What can be done immediately?
This is the first time I've talked about the retention bonus with both mortgage assistance as well as with education assistance. I've talked about the education assistance in court, but tonight it's actually, I can't take credit, it's actually a constituent who talked to me, and I always get my best ideas by listening to people because they're the experts. But one of the things that dawned on me is that, so the reason that we have this overtime, let's back up, the reason we have this overtime crisis is that we have 300 vacancies in the jail. COVID also makes protocols such that there has to be, increased manpower for the way that we put folks out in our jail. We have 20 vacancies at the law enforcement end of the department. And so we're losing people at years 2 and 3, either because of pay or because of conditions. It's difficult to find people. Not everybody wakes up and wants to be, being a jail guard. So it is very difficult. There's some good recruitment that's going on, but it's retention. And that's why I think the plan to help with retention has to go beyond just wages. Yes, we need to continue to increase the wages because they were starved by the court for years before I came on. But we need to get innovative. And we get innovative by doing things like saying, hey, if you will sign up for 5 years with the county, we'll give you some assistance for down payment on a home. Or if you will sign up for 5 years, we'll help you cover college tuition. So those are the kinds of things that I think are different that haven't been proposed before, and that's what I propose.
Commissioner, thank you. Thank you for the hard work you're putting in.
Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you so much.
Endorsed by DSABC. Mark is a local defense lawyer, and tonight Mark would like to tell you why he's vying for the county's top law enforcement post. Mark, come on up to the stage.
Good evening. Wow, that's loud. My name is Mark LaHood, and I'm running for Bexar County District Attorney. We're here, as I look around, I see a bunch of men and women that are like-minded, that we are here with a common goal, right? We might disagree on how to get there, but we're here because we're putting on a forum to talk about public safety. Because public safety is something that affects each and every one of us, right? We can't even have political differences or political discord if we're not safe to go out and talk. Because public safety or lack thereof means that we have unsafe streets, unsafe families, which leads to a circular argument we're going to talk about with the judicial candidates and with the commissioner candidates. But as crime increases, what ends up happening? We run off good businesses. And as we lose those good businesses, then what ends up happening? Crime fills that void. It becomes a circular argument that feeds upon itself, cannibalistic. So I'm proud to see y'all out here. I hope we engage in discourse, and I hope we unite together, outside of labels, but on values and policies. Because I look around, we're here because we value our families. We value protecting them. We value Bexar County. So I hope we all can unite, fight together, because together we can reclaim our streets and our county. My name is Mark LaHood. Thank you so much.
Because I did go out and I know a lot of law enforcement, and I asked them to help me out with these. Why are repeat offenders, why do they keep getting bonds after they reoffend? Multiple major crime cases, not just misdemeanors. What would you do?
So it's actually a twofold answer. So bonds, there's a recommendation from the DA's office, and then the magistrate sets the bond independently of what the DA requests. So part of it is kind of the same logic of the declination policy, right? So if you have two jobs you can do, if I tell you, you can dig a hole, but every time you dig a hole, I'm gonna put dirt over it, or you can build a fence, which one of those jobs are you gonna do? You're gonna pick building the fence. It's kind of the same argument, is that we are pushing an ideology without facts, without evidence, of reducing bail or bonds for people charged of offense regardless of their record. And so when we get off the case itself, when we stop focusing on the actual evidence, the history, what we're dealing with, and start doing this blanket approach, is how we get it wrong. So we have to have the courage to handle the case before us, not worry about an agenda, and take it one case at a time. But then we also have to be proactive with the judges, because the judges ultimately are the ones that set it. And we have to empower our judges to not worry about how it's going to look, not worry about the media, and just do it based on the case before them. That's a good question. Thank you.
Let me ask you another one. You get two questions.
Oh.
There are two different systems for BCDA and law enforcement agencies to view evidence, i.e. photos, body-worn cameras, audio, etc. It is very difficult for detectives, both sides of the house, SAPD and Bexar County, to complete cases over because different systems. This is costing law enforcement to do double work when they say they cannot view the evidence. How would you fix that problem?
Well, so that's another good pragmatic question. So you're dealing with two different agencies that have two different bureaucracies. But the first step that solve it, sadly, is an easy answer. It's communication. I believe miscommunication is the root of all evil, not literally, but. And so we have to get out, we have to unite. So the DA goes out with SAPD, goes out with their deputies, and says, what is going wrong? How can we fix it? So reaching out to our commissioners, our city councils, to get the system united. And if we can't get united, then the last step is to work with them so that we can figure out a more efficient way of getting the information passed on. I mean, taking emotion out of it, the DA's office, aside from justice and all that beauty, it's just a law firm. It's a business. And we have to get back to running it like a business. That means communication has to be paramount. All the chains, all the cogs have to be working in unison. That only works when we're willing to put ourselves out there, listen to criticism, and figure out a solution together. It's not a DA solution, it's a together solution. Thank you so much. Thank you all. God bless.
Well, thank you. Congratulations. Okay, we'd like to welcome Dr. Susan Corbett.
My turn?
Yami, we'd like to begin the process.
They were supposed to go ahead and give us 5 minutes each.
Yes, would you like to begin, Dr. Corbett?
Sure. Hi there. Here we are. This is a really important race. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself so that you understand where I'm coming from with my values. In 1967, my mother and I were driving downtown in Detroit, and we saw Detroit burning. We didn't know why. We went back home. It was a horrible feeling to be in a world where we had no control and where we didn't know how to make the world better. I was 16 years old. It influenced me so much that for the rest of my life, I want to live in a community that is harmonious, where we thrive, and we work out our differences together without burning a city down. Now, what I did was I thought education was the place to go, so I started some alternative schools. I then went on to graduate school in urban planning, urban and regional planning, as well as labor relations. From that, I got a PhD in public administration in 1975. I then moved on and realized that it wasn't the educational system that we had to fix. We had bigger problems. So I went into the media. I thought if we talked to each other and we were able to communicate, then that would be the way that we could have a more harmonious world. I moved to San Antonio with my husband 38 years ago to work for Hard Hanks Communications. And literally, I moved up within the system that I loved. I was at Ken's TV. I was the general manager of Ken's 2 Cable and of Ken's TV. I was the marketing director. I found that it was wonderful, but I missed something big, having children. And so then when Joe was born, 34 years ago, I started my own company. My company is about listening. What I do is I help corporations, auto dealers, restaurants, the Spurs, all kinds of public organizations as well as private organizations. And I try to help people make their product or their service better. Where I am right now is that I had run and I had won the Alamo Colleges District in 2000. And that was very, very exciting to me, but it's also not enough. And right now in my life, what I want to do is I want to make sure we get through COVID, we get through all the issues that have made it difficult in all of our departments so that we can thrive again. Now, why are we here? This is probably the most important part of getting along together, and that is safety. And obviously, we have issues with recruitment, we have issues with retention, and we have all the issues with compensation. I am endorsed by not only the managers that people know about in this town, such as the county judge, Wolf, former mayor, Harberger, my mentor, John Courage, but also the AFL-CIO of San Antonio. I want to represent workers, their values, and make sure that we thrive in the way that when I started my work when I was 16, that we live in a world where nothing like that ever happens to us and that we retain a safe and loving place to live. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, good evening. My name is Grant Moody. I'm the Republican candidate for Bexar County Commissioner, Precinct 3. Thank you. Listen, I'm not a career politician. That should be obvious. I'm not a politician at all. I'm really a Marine combat veteran. I've served 20 years to my country as a Marine. I'm also a businessman, a local businessman. I spent 5 years at USAA in a variety of executive roles, leadership roles, and then the last 3 years over at Valero Energy, doing innovation and strategy work there. Again, solving problems. I saw this race as a unique opportunity to take that experience in problem solving in business and apply it to our county government. Because really the county is a very large business, $2.9 billion budget with a B, billion. So a lot of taxpayer dollars, both locally, state, federal dollars flow through the county, and it needs oversight, it needs accountability and transparency. And I hope to bring that with the experience I've had in the business community. But three of the key things that I've been talking on throughout this campaign, number one, from day one, has always been public safety. Public safety is fundamental. If we don't have public safety, if we're not able to raise our families in a safe community, we can't start a business, we can't grow a business without safety and security. And so that's why every time I give stump speech, the first priority I start with is public safety. And I look forward to talking more about that tonight. The other two things, transportation. Obviously, transportation is a big issue. We are a rapidly growing county. And so how we think about our investment in transportation, not over the next 2 to 5 years, but over the next 10 to 20 years, to make sure we stay ahead of the growth and make sure that we can spend more time with our families doing the things we love rather than stuck in traffic on 1604 right now. And finally, property taxes. I hear it everywhere, but 28% increase in appraisals. That's completely unsustainable. And we have to solve this. It's not something just county government's going to be able to solve. Obviously there's a state component to that. But how do we really truly take less in terms of dollars out of every taxpayer's pocket and accomplish more with less in the county? Knowing that there's always going to be growth and additional revenues coming in from that growth that's coming into San Antonio and Bexar County, and we can leverage that money more than taking additional dollars out of everybody's pocket. I'll just go back really quick on the public safety component because I think it's important, understanding my background as a Marine. So, I went to the United States Naval Academy, came out, graduated, went to become a Marine pilot, flew F-18s, served in Iraq and Afghanistan, also did a deployment to Japan, Thailand, South Korea. In the last 10 years, I've been in the reserves. Recently reached 20 SAT years in the Marine Reserves, so I qualify for and I'm eligible for a Marine Reserve retirement. But all that time in uniform makes me very much appreciate and understand the challenges and the risks that law enforcement faces every day when they leave their home, when they go out there to protect and defend all of us in this room. And I greatly respect that, I thank them for that, and I want to be a champion for that going forward in Bexar County. Thank you very much.
Some of the questions that were sent in, and we're going to start with one that says, Texas State Law SB 22 clearly states that first responder deaths caused by COVID-19 should be treated as in the line of duty and compensated as such. The county has continuously refused to compensate the family of Deputy Timothy De La Fuente who died of COVID-19. How do you plan to resolve the situation? We'll start with Ms. Lavelle.
You think about everything we've been through, and we're not done yet. We still have to deal with all of the people who suffered. I think it's our responsibility to take care of the people who are family members of someone who put his life on the line. I have no doubt that if I get on the court, that is something I'd be very predisposed to do.
Well, I don't know the specifics of this case, but I think it's something that obviously needs to be addressed. Understanding the specific law underneath that you mentioned and applying it to the specific situation of the deputy and, addressing it. I'd love to learn more about it and, if elected to this role, I obviously will be available, I will listen, I will learn, and when there are these issues that invariably come up, we address them, we deal with them, and we don't shrink from that responsibility.
Excuse me, I am the widow of Deputy Timothy De La Fuente.
Thank you, ma'am,
I'm so sorry.
for your husband's service and your service.
Thank you for being here with us tonight.
Thank you for being here. And I want to ask more questions, but I have to stick to the format. So I'll stick to the format. Reports of faulty locks, leaky ceilings, broken air conditioning, and many other maintenance issues are well known. Meanwhile, detention deputies are working several mandatory overtime shifts a week, causing burnout and exhaustion. Overworked deputies have ended up in traffic accidents. They're assaulted in the jail at least once a day. How do we secure the well-being of both jail staff and inmates? We'll start with Ms. Lee.
Well, thank you for the question. And I think this is one we have to get a handle on and address immediately. The first part of the question, I think, is something I don't understand. But if there are these identified safety hazards in our jail, they need to be fixed last week, right? Not next week, not next quarter, not next year. Fix them. Get them done, right? That has to be budgeted and taken care of immediately, and it should be. The other part about manning. So this clearly is an ongoing issue. And not only is it a safety issue for those deputies who could get in an accident on the way home, could put themselves at risk in the jail, but also just the fact that we are continuing to pay overtime for all those hours, so it's not even physically responsible to act in that way either. We need to have a comprehensive picture of what the current manning looks like at the jail, what's actually needed, and in the meantime, in the near term, we may have to do additional hiring. We absolutely will. But ultimately, when we remove all that overtime from the picture, the budget cost will actually go down. We'll have a jail that's more functional, that's safer. We'll have deputies that are happier and have higher morale, and it'll be a win-win-win for everyone. But we have to address the problem. And so I hope that we will do that, and if I'm elected, I will.
This is why we're here tonight, because the conditions and the overtime pay and the conditions at the jail have become very clear to all of us that we must solve it. But we're lacking two things. One is transparency. Now, there were supposed to be 2 different audits that went out. We've heard a little bit about one of them. We don't know about the other. So one of the first things that I care about is transparency of all the information to all of us. I intend to make sure that the public gets to know everything that's going on, that it's not rumors, that we hear it, and that we deal with it right away. The other side of it has to do with recruitment of people to get into these jobs as quickly as possible. And while we know that it's very, very difficult what's been going on, what we don't know and what we need to know is how we can speed this up, because this can't go on. We must have safe facilities, and we must have people that can do their job responsibly and comfortably and still have a life.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But I have so much more.
Yeah, we actually have time for another question if you'd like to ask. Absolutely, why not?
Would you like, well, you have time for a rebuttal. Would you like to answer that? Because we keep talking about overtime. I want to know exactly how we're going to get people in the door of the 7th largest city in the United States. I want to know how you're going to do it. It's not just let's recruit them. What's your plan?
Well, I want to address 2 things on that I think are major factors that we can address. The first thing is making sure that we recruit for those positions. And I'm going to continue to learn about this issue, but my understanding is that, if you're recruiting for a position of patrol, and those individuals want to be on patrol, but you put them in the jail, then you're going to have issues with morale, and people are going to leave because they want to do something else. The other thing is pay, compensation, benefits. If there's a significant disparity between SAPD, then you also have that issue as well, and they can be recruited away from the Bexar County Sheriff's deputies. So I think that those are 2 things that Commissioners Court can absolutely work on addressing that will affect that problem and that challenge when it comes to manning the jail.
Ma'am?
As I've been talking to the various brothers and sisters in the unions that support me, one of the things that's very clear is that the workforce development gap. Now, I have nothing against Alamo colleges. I used to be on their board. They're one of my clients. But between book learning and getting into their jobs, there are issues that we have to figure out how quickly to get apprenticeship programs done. Whether you want to be on patrol or whether you want to be in the jail, it is important that we find public information ways to get people that we haven't done before. When I talk to people in building and construction trades, they say there's a big gap there. Now, I know the city is doing quite a bit on workforce development, but where's the county? I think we can do a lot more that way as well.
Fundamentally, what's the difference between yourself and the person you're running against?
Who gets to go first? I'm not as tall. I am a senior. I have been here 38 years. I've owned my own company for 34 years, which means I've done payroll. I have been a constructive and hardworking horse for you. Everybody who's wearing the horse knows that. I'm unabashedly a Democrat. But that doesn't mean I won't work for everybody. And what's most important to remember is that I intend to sit at Peter Sakai's left hand, and I do mean left hand, and work really hard to make sure that where we go in this county is premier for our entire state.
Well, you know, I go back to my background, and these are just the honest differences. You know, there's a difference between, you know, owning a small company and obviously dealing with a big company with thousands of employees and hundreds of millions of dollars in capital projects, sometimes $1 billion capital projects. And so I think that that's important when we're talking about the size and scope of a county government that has over 5,000 employees. So I think that's important. And then again, when it comes to public safety in particular, I just think my background, my service in uniform, and understanding the challenges of law enforcement and putting on the uniform and leaving their families to go out there and serve the community, I think is very important in this role. And I do think, you know, I'm willing to work with anyone. I think though that, you know, having some diversity of thought on the Commissioner's Court and having a different perspective is valuable, right? And so I hope that that's something I can bring to the court. Thank you.
Mr. Brady, thank you for sharing your points of view. Thank you. And we're going to, the final debate will be candidates for Bexar County Judge. So let's welcome Commissioner Trista Berry and Judge Peter Sakai. And Commissioner DeBerry is on our way. Just kidding.
Would you like to take an intermission?
Well, we'd like to keep everybody inside here.
I know you can fill the time, Judge.
Yeah, I can, but
Great opportunity because, you know, nowadays sometimes certain candidates decline or it's hard to hear from the 2 points of view. So the beauty of this is that we have our two candidates that are going to share the points of view. So let's hear them out and let's take it in so we can make some really good informed decisions come November. And we're going to actually spend some time here on this debate because we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so we have some freedom to ask some questions. And I know, Yami, you have some personal questions as a journalist that you'd like to ask, and some issues that are pressing and very important to the community here in San Antonio.
Do you want me to start with Judge Sakai, or should we wait for him?
I think we can begin with Judge Sakai with your 5-minute introduction.
Go ahead, Judge Sakai.
well, good evening. My name is Judge Peter Sakai, and I'm Rutherford County Judge. I want to thank the Bexar County Deputy Sheriff's Association, Ron Took, President, Renee Ochoa, leader of the PAC, Deputy Sheriff's PAC, and Yamin Vernon from KZD and WAI, and the wonderful job you do over there at the station. It's an opportunity that I really want to say thank you to the deputy sheriffs. This is the first time I've had an opportunity to do this. I've been your public servant for the last 40 years, serving first as a chief prosecutor in district attorney's office in charge of the juvenile section. I went to private practice and ran a private practice for 11 years. And then for 26 years, I was your children's court and judge in the 225th District Court, where I served for 4 terms, where I stepped down to step up to be your next county judge. One of the things I've learned, and I want to make real clear to you here, is that it's important that the deputy sheriffs are at the table and that I listen to you. That's my pledge tonight, and it's basically what I've always done as your public servant here in Bexar County. You have the expertise, you have the power, you have the voice, and so it's important, especially now when we have such tough problems that we have to deal with. You know, I just want to share with you my relationship with the deputy sheriffs, especially as a judge in the courthouse. I have worked with the deputies. I have always treated them with dignity and respect. I've always treated them as partners in the courtroom, especially the deputies that were protecting me as court security. I valued their expertise. I valued their knowledge of law enforcement. And I never treated them as employees. I treated them as partners. And that's something I will continue to do as your next county sheriff. So who am I? I think y'all know me, the community knows me, but I want to make sure tonight that you understand that I am a person that believes in the rule of law. When I take office January 1st, I will take an oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of this state of the United States. And that is something, as a county judge, I am very big on, because as a judge, we must always commit to the rule of law. And in the rule of law, that means enforcing the law, and that means holding people accountable when they break the law. 2, I'm open and transparent, and that's what I believe government to be. And I'll share with the deputy sheriffs that that's, I think, one of the issues I want to discuss tonight is the openness and transparency, especially when it comes to the issues at the sheriff's department. And that open and transparency not only is with commissioners for it, but it's with the sheriff and with his executive team and with the public. We all have to work together. And finally, I'm a unifier, not a divider. I'm somebody that wants to bring people together. I want to bring the experts. I want to bring the stakeholders together. I want to figure out what the problems are and come up with the solutions. Anybody who's in business or understands how things work, it's about process. It's not necessarily about big, bold ideas. It's about fixing things. And that's one thing I've heard quite clearly in this community, in this race. Judge, we got problems, fix it. And that's what we need to do. We got to come together. We can't be arguing over ideology and politics. We got to figure out what those problems are, and it's going to be a pleasure and a commitment for me to work with the Deputy Sheriff's Association and along with the sheriff, and treating y'all separately with dignity and respect. He as an elected official, but you as employees, and hearing what your issues are. So let me be clear on some issues that have risen in this campaign. And I will make it very clear. I do not support the building of a new jail. That is a $1 billion budget buster, and we can't help the deputies if we're building a new jail. 2, no privatization of any law enforcement services. Privatization did not work for child welfare, and it will not work for law enforcement or any first responder or fire protection. We got to value the men and women of the Deputy Sheriff's Association, and that's no to privatization. I'm also taking a strong stand no to a county taxpayer-funded baseball stadium. And the reason being is because I want a back-to-basics budget.
You have 30 seconds.
I want what's called bare necessities, BEXAR necessities. I want the budget to focus in on the children and families, which is the true infrastructure of our county. Yes, Judge Wolf and the Commissioners Court have great legacy projects, the Mission Trail, the San Pedro Creek, the Tillman Center. We're going to finish those out, but let's get back to basics and let's take care of the children and family of our community. So let me close with this. I am running for county judge because I am ready, I am willing, and this community knows me, trusts me, and I'm ready to serve. I ask for your support, I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just to clarify, be clear that both candidates are here, and were here at least 20 minutes before they were supposed to be here. So that is not an issue. It was our fault for not bringing both candidates here at the same time. So please accept my apology, and we will proceed with Commissioner Rivera.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. It is my privilege, my honor. I'm blessed to be here. For those of you that have served or are serving, whether you're in the military or whether you're in law enforcement, raise your hand and a round of applause for those that put their lives on the line every single day. Thank you. Listen, I just came from an event with my daughter. She was doing her car wash. It's her senior year in high school, and so it's a very exciting time. She's 17 years old. Obviously applying for different colleges, and that's important, obviously. But, she said, hey, Mom, before I left the driveway, she said, I raised $500 at a car wash for the senior class, because she's an officer in the senior class. And so she told me, she said, Mom, do what you do today, and that is you go slay. You stand up for people who don't have a voice. And that's exactly what I did as a county commissioner. And so that is my great privilege to be here tonight. Thank you. I know I've got a few more minutes left or whatever. I got into this race, and I got into the race for county commissioner because I'm a pragmatist. I'm a small business owner. I've employed as many as 100 people at one time, and I felt like there needed to be more of a wheelhouse regarding the private sector and small business ownership, meaning you sign the front of a paycheck and the back of a paycheck. You've made hard decisions regarding payroll. I go to sleep every night when I was a small business owner, sold that company since, but I go to bed every night and I think to myself, I'm putting food on the table for people and families. Escalating healthcare insurance premiums, I dealt with that on a regular basis. And by the way, I paid 100% of healthcare insurance premiums for my employees because why? It was the right thing to do. Also made sure we had daycare for our employees. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. It's the reason why we now have a parental leave policy at the county, because I knew it was the right thing to do. And I'm going to use the rest of my time because we're here to talk about public safety and we're here to talk about crime. And as I have traveled this county, whether it's been the Thompson Neighborhood Association on the west side, Dignity Hill and Denver Heights on the east side, Harmony Hills on the north side, or Highland Park and Highland Hills on the south side, it is the same conversation that we have with people. It is crime and it is public safety. And as a county commissioner, what did I do? I went to the mat and I went to bat for the Deputy Sheriff's Association. Meaning, the reason why there's a collective bargaining agreement in place today is because I stood proud and I stood tall. And I walked into the county judge's office and I said, Judge, this is ridiculous. We've had a collective bargaining agreement out there for 2 years and we've done nothing. These folks that are putting their lives on the line every single day have not had a cost of living allowance increase for 2 years. And so guess what, folks? We got it done. That's what leadership is about. Body camera policy, turning that around, 10-day body camera policy, I advocated for that. I brought that to court because I waited a year for it. Because why? Because what does it do? It exonerates police officers 99% of the time. That's what we do. That is leadership. And by the way, you all know, obviously my tenure was probably defined most in part by the fact regarding jail conditions. $10 to $15 million in overtime. I'm the only candidate on this stage, despite the fact my opponent has been in office for 26 years, who stood up to power. Because although the sheriff has a lot of power, he's got to answer tough questions. And it's not just about fiscal responsibility and $10 to $50 million in overtime. It's about what people are doing today, sweating in 90-degree temperatures at the Bexar County Jail right now because the air conditioning went out there and is still out today. It is about a woman who has to file a police report to get off of her double or triple mandatory overtime shift to go pick up her children. That's unacceptable. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to do better by our folks that are working in that jail because the conditions right now, still today, are inhumane. This is what leadership is about. It's about standing up for people that don't have a voice, and for far too long, we have not prioritized public safety at Bexar County. It will not stand anymore with Trish DeBerry as your next Bexar County judge. We all thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Because I could see your blonde hair when I asked again if you were here, so she was here. Just to be fair, I did see your blonde hair back there. Let's ask the first question. These are mandatory questions that the association wanted us to ask. Knowing that the county manager uses the top 5 most populous Texas counties as a basis for its recommendations on fair market pay for all professionals at the county, do you think that the deputy sheriff's pay should be based on the same top 5 counties? Judge Scott?
Yes, and I will tell you what some of the issues are, is that relationship with the budget office and the deputy sheriffs and the association and the employees. And I'm going to tell you, I worked at the courthouse. Commissioner's very right, for 26 years. So I was a courthouse employee. And the budget office doesn't always treat its county employees with dignity and respect. And that's something I am going to want to change as your next county judge. And what that means is, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to basically open up the process, make sure that this budget process, this last budget process, I'll be real blunt, the county manager saying 0 deputies, in light of the current situations, that's unacceptable. We shouldn't have had that situation where then the county commissioners had to then reallocate. We got to be careful in regards to that budget. Bexar County needs to be big enough to protect its citizens, but it's got to be small enough to live within its budget. And that's why when we talk about the budget, we've got some really tough decisions that we must partake and understand that if we're going to commit, and I am committing to public safety, then we're going to have to put more resources to law enforcement. And that may mean we may not be able to, we obviously have to get that property tax issue. We're going to do our very best to lower the taxes, at least control it. But we've got tough decisions that we have to make every year to make sure our county employees are treated with dignity and respect. That's compensation, that's the retention that I support by Commissioner Calvert. I also want to see, in regards to the deputy sheriff, incentives in order for them to come into the sheriff's department and be an active part of the county employees. So that, in regards to the comparison study, I commit that whatever the elected officials, whatever department heads, whatever they're using as their comparative study for their salary and their salary increases, the deputy sheriff's better get the same treatment.
You can talk the talk all day long, but again, you were there for 26 years. I was there and walked the walk. So I talked about what did I do. Collective bargaining agreement got done. Body cam and turnaround policy got done. Made sure that we had raises regarding the sheriff's deputies. And so as we talk about, yes, do they need to be benchmarked against the top 5 counties? They absolutely, positively do. Because it's a problem that we have with recruitment, and it's a problem that we have with retention. As somebody who was not shy, obviously, about standing up for the rank and file. By the way, the sheriff and I may have had our disagreements. That is clear. But there is no question, as I am around this county every single day, whether it's at church events, whether it's in neighborhood associations, when I see deputy sheriffs, what do? They look at me and they're like, you're one of us. You stood up for us. Because that's what it is about. It is about speaking truth to power. And it is not a dictatorship if you are an elected official. It's not. You have to come to the court and you have to collaborate and you have to prove your case. And yes, all day long, I'm going to ask tough questions. I'm going to ask for accountability regarding how money is being spent. I'm not going to promise courts, district courts, county courts a lot of money because, by the way, my opponent is conflicted because obviously he's been there for 26 years. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to say, hey, what do we look at and where do we need to prioritize the services and the budget that we have? And by the way, I'm going to reiterate it one more time. There is nobody who lost sleep at night regarding the attacks that I endured, standing up for what I thought was right and what I thought was just and what I thought was truthful for the rank and file who were putting their lives on the line every single day. You all know what happened, obviously, with Black Rifle Coffee. My family was threatened. Unacceptable. And that just like my opponent is not condoning the attacks currently on me right now, the Bexar County Sheriff did not condone the attacks on me when I was standing out on principle for what was right, like I said, for the men and women who were putting their lives on the line every single day. I will do that as your next Bexar County judge because it is about not just associated with where you are on the partisan spectrum. It is about standing out for those, like I said, who don't have a voice, who have felt ignored. And some of my proudest days in office, I knew I was doing the right thing. When every single day I got a message from either a detention officer at the Bexar County Jail or an inmate at the Bexar County Jail regarding inhumane conditions there. I was the only one standing up for those folks. So let me just tell you, as somebody who is not a career politician, as somebody who is not a professional politician, as somebody who has high expectations not only as a single mother raising my children, but as a small business owner who's had, like I said, employees that I have very high expectations of too. I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to hold you accountable for what you said you were going to do. I'm going to offer transparency regarding county government because, ladies and gentlemen, cronyism is alive and well at the Bexar County Courthouse, and we are going to bust it out. Thank you.
Okay, the next question.
Next question is coming also from DSABC. The current county manager recommended no new funding for law enforcement in his latest budget. However, a recent poll commissioned by the DSABC showed that public safety is the top priority for most Bexar County voters this election season. How will you make public safety a priority for the county?
I am happy to be on the stage as the only one of the candidates here who was at that budget session. That budget session lasted 3 or 4 hours. As it was discussed and debated, should we appropriate more money in the budget to hire more sheriff deputies? Not only was I there and the only candidate there for 3 to 4 hours, listening to the debate, weighing into the debate, supporting DSABC, issuing a press release saying the county should appropriate more money for Bexar County sheriffs. I was the only candidate that did that. So, as I stand before you today, let me just say, there's no question that we have to have a better priority regarding law enforcement in this county. That means, A, we got to pay our deputies more. I was the county commissioner who advocated passionately for a jail consultant to come on board and benchmark against other counties and what they were doing better. to make sure that, because that's what we do as a small business owner, right? We pivot, we adjust, we innovate, and figure out what are we going to do. That's what's lacking in county government. It operates in the dark, it's rubber stamped every single day, and that's what happens when you have career politicians who are in office. This is what this doesn't happen when you have somebody who comes from the private sector and a small business owner. He says, I'm not going to accept the status quo. And so when I was down there at Commissioner's Court, and I was speaking on behalf of Bexar County sheriffs, they did not get what they want. But I could not have been prouder to stand up for the men and women and say, hey, David Smith, the county manager, we've got to prioritize public safety, because I think, to the point that we've heard today, the county, although we have many different problems in the county, there is no question, many different things that we have to be able to address. And let me just say, the county judge is a county judge in name only by the Constitution of the state of Texas. You are the CEO of the county, managing a $2.8 billion budget. You're not deciding guilt or innocence. You are appropriating money where you see fit. And so I will prioritize public safety. And as somebody who's been a CEO for the past 25 years of a small business, I will guarantee you public safety will be prioritized. And we will have better conditions in the jail. And my opponent, Dr. No, and Peter Come-Lately, who said nothing about these issues, despite being there 26 years, we have to have conversations, folks, about moving the Bexar County Jail. Because the poorest zip code in Bexar County is 78207, and guess where it's located? Right behind the Bexar County Jail. And it's been that way for 40 years. So, for Peter and the sheriff to say, the jail is not a barrier to economic development or bridging the wage gap on the west side, is a complete lie. We have to pull people out of poverty. We have to look at things differently. We have to do a cost-benefit analysis as we look at an air conditioning system and infrastructure issues at the jail and security issues that happen every single day. What's wrong with having a conversation about improving conditions in the jail and pulling people out of poverty? This is the kind of leadership the county judge needs.
Referred to you as Commissioner Berry. The reference to Dr. No means what?
You said no to the Bexar County Jail and moving it out of the west side. You said no to a downtown baseball stadium. You won't even entertain the idea. And you talk about
So
legacy.
why can't you call me Peter or Judge Sakon?
Let me finish. Because, Judge Sakai, this isn't a judicial position that you're running for. It is a CEO position, managing a $2.8 billion budget. That's what this is about.
But this is about dignity and respect, and this is an example of what I'm doing. Dignity and respect for the conversation, not name calling. I take offense to Dr. No.
You're not respecting people who live in poverty on the west side and have for 40 years. You say no to economic development. You say no to pulling people out of poverty, and you say no to bridging the wage gap. So that is why I refer to you as Dr. No. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, can we repeat? I think we got off track.
I was just going to say that. The current county manager recommended no new funding for law enforcement in his latest budget. However, a recent poll commissioned by the DSABC showed that public safety is top priority for most Bexar County voters this election season. How will you make public safety a priority for the county?
Great question. First and foremost, I'm going to be involved in the budget process. I believe the process, the budget process, as I opened up, has to be more open and transparent. And obviously the county manager has led that. It's the same budget process that was in place when Commissioner Berry spent her 1 year, less than 1 year. So some things have never changed. And so come January 1st, when I become your next county judge, we're going to have an open and transparent process. We're not going to have the county manager making a unilateral decision to say no deputies. That's ridiculous. SAPD got 130 new officers in this last budget process. They went out and got a grant in order to subsidize. And that's what we need to do. We need to create partnerships with our stakeholders. That's the county, that's the state, that's the city, that's the federal government. And that is my expertise of what I did as a children's court judge. I created innovative, cutting-edge programs, family drug court that worked with parents with addiction. I had an early childhood court, baby court, mothers that had their children, babies taken away from them, mainly because of mental health. I created a college-bound doctor for foster kids. I didn't do it by myself. I brought people together and we came up and dealt with those complex problems and created resolutions so that we could put families back together. That's the prototype. That's what I'm going to bring to the County Commissioners Court, especially to the budget process, is to look at the problems that we have. It's going to be about compensation. It's going to be about working conditions. It's about dealing with those overtime issues. But it's not pointing fingers. It's not blaming people. It's saying, let's figure this out and let's bring those experts in. We need those studies that have been done. We need to bring those experts to the table. And if we have to push all the money and basically say, courts, you gotta hold on. District Attorney, you gotta hold on, because I've got to take care of the deputy sheriff. That's what I'm committed to do. Because this is the way the process works. The jail system, the sheriff's operation is like a three-legged stool. The sheriff in charge, he's an elected official. I will always treat him with dignity and respect. To the district attorney's office, who files the charges and puts people in jail. And then it's the courts, who either set bonds or dispose of the cases and get people out. We've got to get all three legs strong. It's Commissioners Court, led by the county judge, that are the pegs that make this stool, this operation work. And that's what is going to be required in this budget process. It's not going to be unilateral decisions by the county manager. It's going to be led by me as county judge, along with my county commissioners. Although as county judge, I may be the CEO, but my vote is equal to the vote and the authority of the county commissioners. It's going to take 3 votes to move things along. And I'm proud to say that I have the support of the fellow county commissioners on that court, and we're going to make a difference when Judge Sakai is your next county judge.
Like I said, this is a CEO position. So as a judge for 26 years, what do? You are reactive. You're not proactive. And so as a county judge, when I got in there, I did not let the grass grow underneath my feet. Yes, I hold people accountable. Just as I hold my children accountable. But let me just tell you, despite the fact that I was the only Republican on that court in Precinct 3, I cultivated 2 votes to do very important things. Lower the property tax rate to the lowest it's been in 25 years, and although it may be small, at least it was headed in the right direction. Teed up a homestead exemption. Yes, you caught that. Thank you. Teed up a homestead exemption of the county that didn't exist, not just the county, but the Bexar County Hospital District. We had very serious conversations about taxpayer relief, and I'll continue to do that, because true appraisal reform and property taxes and relief starts in the legislature. And by the way, whoever gets his seat 2 weeks later, there's a session. So I'm going to be pounding the halls talking about property tax relief and appraisal reform. But we're also going to be talking about thinking. But we're also going to be talking about what are we doing to support law enforcement. And I'm going to reiterate. Listen, folks, there is no question. There is a lot of passion in my heart. As a native San Antonio, born and raised here, my dad was in the Air Force, the youngest of 6 children. We fought over a bathroom and seconds at the dinner table. My mother always said, if you count the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves. And so that is the kind of fiscal conservative leadership that I want to bring to the county. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't appropriate money in the places that we need to, but we also have to ask for a return on investment associated with appropriation of those dollars. And so like I said, for 26 years, I have an opponent who has sat on the court and been very reactive. He may criticize the fact that I was only here for a year, but I guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, Katie barred the door. There are many, many different things, including property tax reduction, a body camera release policy, a family leave policy in the county that didn't exist, led the effort to appropriate $300 million in domestic violence, a historic amount of money, to make sure that women and children were no longer living in fear, and also make sure I was standing up and standing tall for the Deputy Sheriff's Association of Bexar County. There is nobody that fought harder for the men and women, not just in the Bexar County Jail, but those that were out on the street. And I will continue to do that. And by the way, Peter, when it came to that budget session regarding appropriating more money for deputy sheriffs, you were not there. Shame on you. Done.
I won't waste my time arguing over a vote.
The next question.
I want to rebut that for 30 seconds if I could.
Go ahead. We have time.
Since we brought it up. Listen, the conversation about the vote was never about a vote. The conversation about the vote was get your house in order.
Yes.
We have votes at the emergency service districts, we have votes at the parks, but we have 250 to 300 vacancies at the jail. We have men and women that are working double and triple overtime shifts and leaving, by the way, not even able to take bathroom breaks. Sometimes some of them soiling on themselves because they can't take bathroom breaks. Unacceptable. Not to mention the fact, like I said, leaving bleary-eyed and wrapping their cars around telephone poles, which, by the way, that's been documented, and gone to the hospital because of that. Yes, I pushed authority because I said this should be a priority. This is the biggest line item in the budget, is the Bexar County Jail. And men and women cannot be living in the inhumane conditions that they are now. And by the way, folks, there are still 250 to 300 vacancies at the Bexar County Jail. Guess what happens when they reach 350? The National Guard comes in to take over. So, when we talk about prioritization and me speaking truth to power, I will do that all day long. Because why? Because it is the right thing to do.
The next question. What will you do to address the attrition rate at BCSO?
We've already touched on it. We've got that retention policy that I wholly endorsed by Commissioner Calvert. And I really do look forward to work with Commissioner Tommy Calvert. He's one of the brightest and smartest county commissioners. He and I have been sitting down together talking about what we can do, not only for the Deputy Sheriff's Association, but what we can do for the community, what we can do for the East Side, and what we can do to make sure that we have equity. And make sure that when we deal with equity issues, we're talking about public health. One of the big issues that is coming up is the new public health entity that the current County Commissioners Court has committed to. And I want to make sure that public health focuses on that infrastructure, children and family, when it comes to wellness, it comes to nutrition, it comes to dealing with diseases such as obesity and diabetes. We've got to eliminate the food deserts. We've got to partner up with the nonprofit communities. We've got to partner up with the faith-based community. That was what I did in Children's Court. And I understand some people say, Judge, you were a great judge. But that's the issue, and that's the value set that I bring as county judge. That I have the ability and the willingness to listen and listen intently. To hear both sides of a dispute. Not taking to the political ideology, but look at the merits of an argument and then make a decision. Some people may not like the decision, but make the decision and explain it so that people can either accept it or reject it and move on. That's what's called proven leadership. That's what I've been doing for 26 years, and that's what you get as your next county judge.
So let me be clear about the fact, Yami, your question was about retention. It wasn't necessarily about public health. So we can talk about public health at a later time because I got big ideas regarding public health. But the question was about retention. So one of the first things I did as a county commissioner, I went down actually to the recruitment office to talk to the recruitment officer, to talk about what are the things that we need to do to be able to recruit more folks into the deputy sheriff's office. And this is what I heard. We got to pay people better. Absolutely. The good people that we get in the deputy sheriff's office, they stay here, they're trained, but guess what happens? They leave and they go to SAPD because why? Because they're paid better and there are better benefits there. So we do better at Bexar County regarding deputy sheriffs and detention officers if we have the right priorities in place. I can guarantee you, as the next judge of Bexar County, law enforcement will be prioritized, and we will take a close look on how we do things better, bigger, more efficiently, and not only just for the Bexar County Jail and for the Deputy Sheriff's Association, but for you all sitting out here today who don't have enough patrols in your neighborhoods, where crime is on the increase. And by the way, my opponent has been endorsed by the Texas Organizing Project, which goes down to the Bexar County Jail and bails people out of jail for serious crimes that go back into your neighborhoods and commit crimes. That will stop when I become Bexar County Jail.
Let me ask you, and I'm gonna, what is transparency to you? As a member of the media, I can tell you I have to fight this every day, from San Antonio to Austin to Washington, D.C. What is transparency to each one of you, and how will you make it better as the new county judge?
Transparency to me, Yami, in regards to, is when you call and say, Judge, we need to talk about whatever issue. You know, as a judge, we have ethical duties not to discuss cases. And so, you know, a lot of judges tend not to want to respond to the media. I think you have seen that I've had an open door policy in my courtroom, especially with those tough cases in regards to child abuse and neglect. I had one of the toughest decisions, and I've made the toughest decisions during those 26 years. The life and death consequences of those children and families that came into court, not only abuse and neglect, but family law, custody, divorce, tough issues of people going he said, she said, and then trying to sort it out, and really trying to help these families get through the legal system and give them justice, give them the dignity and respect that they deserve. And so in regards to transparency, it's basically having an open door policy. It's not running away from the media. It's to address your questions, but respecting the ethical rules that we all have to live by. And so that's what I believe transparency means, is not to be afraid of the media, to address it. And I had a child death case. And one of the toughest calls in my entire career is when the media came to my court that evening after the announcement of that death, said, Judge, we need you to talk about it. I did not want to talk. I did not want to talk, but I said, no, I have to respond. And the public has a right to know. And that's the type of transparency that you get. You got somebody that has the courage to say, we got to speak the truth. And what I've learned from that particular case was never, ever to be afraid to make a decision, even though decisions sometimes don't turn out well. And so that is what I believe transparency is about. It's about courage, it's about commitment, it's about communication, and it's about not being afraid to make the tough calls. And that's what you get as your next county judge. Thank you.
I think, look, I've told you all before, when I came into office, it was really as a change agent. I like to say, and I'm proud of the fact, that I have what I call a restless discontent with the status quo. And that means that's because I come from a small business background. I'm not really ever satisfied with how we're doing things. We can do things better, we can innovate, we can pivot regarding technology and what's happening. Like, we can't just rubber stamp things that come across the court. And by the way, we had many county commissioners who were there for 25, 30, 40 years. And so I think what I brought to the office as a county commissioner was a refreshing look at things, about how we do things better, about pulling the curtain open regarding what was happening in Commissioner's Court. I mean, let's be honest. City council has a tendency to suck all the oxygen out of the room, for sure. And so county government kind of operates in the dark and nobody knows what is happening. And so when I got into office under a mandate from those who put me there, it was about transparency and it was about accountability. And so yes, you're right. I asked tough questions of people, whether it was the sheriff, whether it was the DA, whomever, because we demand a return on investment for the dollars that we are spending every single day. The $2.8 billion budget, there's a lot of thought in that budget, and I took a look at that. But this is what we have to be able to do as well regarding transparency and accountability. And by the way, as a county commissioner, I was the only county commissioner that after every single commissioner's court meeting that we had, did a 30 to 45 second video that we pushed out and named the top 3 things that we got accomplished on the court, how it impacted your pocketbook, how we improved things for your life. And it was the most popular thing that I ever did, was doing that because people told me over and over and over again, I finally understand what county government does. And my opponent is a part of the problem because he hasn't necessarily been transparent about the activities that happen at the Bexar County Courthouse. He's a part of the problem, and we're going to talk about, and I'm going to close this now, about how important it is to have transparency and accountability. There is a lot of dark money that is entered into this race, especially when it comes to me. And there is zero transparency and accountability associated with the attack ads and that dark money. And my opponent wants to talk about the fact that he has no idea and has had no hand in that whatsoever. You can talk about that all day long, Peter, but your silence speaks volumes. You know what's going on. That is not transparent and it is not accountable when dark money enters into a race. Thank you.
I believe, as I said earlier, about the rule of law. And I think Deputy Sheriff's Association and the deputies and the men and women, y'all know about the rule of law. You file a charge, you've got to have the probable cause and the evidence to file a charge. You've got to have evidence. And when you don't, then you don't file those charges. And you know what? Yeah, sometimes those victims are yelling and screaming. I understand that. I saw that at the courthouse. But we always have to believe in the rule of law. And when you make an accusation, you must have concrete, credible evidence to back it up. And Commissioner Barrett, you don't have it. You said that in a press conference, but you have no proof.
So let me just say, Peter, where there is smoke, there is fire.
Where's your
Okay?
proof? There's no proof.
Yeah, and
Proof.
it doesn't matter if there's not proof. Watergate didn't have a lot of proof either until the end. So let me just say, hang on,
Ladies and gentlemen,
please. You can't have a double standard regarding Mr. Sakai or Peter talking about life and death decisions. He had evidence, he had hard evidence in front of him regarding a very serious case regarding child abuse and putting a young baby female into a home. He had all of the evidence in front of him. But he made a decision to put her back there and she was killed by her parents. So you don't need a whole lot of evidence. That is contradictory to what I'm talking about today.
We have one that was asking, do you fundamentally know the limits of your office? In American politics, we have seen an increase in people who campaign on issues that their office categorically does not have any authority over. They put an example, such as city council members saying they will ban abortion, or mayors saying they will stop illegal immigration. That's fine.
Again, under the rule of law. And there was a particular case in which I had to decide on a rule of law. That was the San Antonio Paved Ordinance that came up, and I had to hear that case. And I will tell you, a lot of judges didn't want to hear that case because it was a very hotly charged political case, because obviously city council wanted to put a mandatory paid leave benefits, which I personally believe in, but I made a decision based on the rule of law. That ordinance was unconstitutional because it was preempted by state law. And that's where I will have disagreements with my colleagues, perhaps at city council, is that there are a lot of areas they cannot legally get involved with because of what's called the doctrine of preemption. And that was the decision and a call that I made, which I was later criticized by my own party. They said, how could you have ruled on that when you personally believe in it? It's because I have fidelity, I have commitment, I have conviction to the rule of law. And that's what you get, me as your next county judge.
So, there again, I want to answer the question directly about what is within your purview. You talked about abortion, you talked about immigration. The judge's seat does not have purview over those things, but what you can do is you can use the office as a bully pulpit, whether it's property taxes, whether it's exceptions to the rule regarding abortions, whether it's rape, incest, health of the mother, whether it's immigration, and making sure that the federal government knows exactly what's going down at the border and the consequences of what we're paying here in San Antonio, Texas. You can use this office as a bully pulpit, regardless of what you have purview over. And I think I made that clear as a county commissioner. Like I said, whether it was property taxes and cultivating Democratic votes on that, whether it was cultivating Democratic votes on a family leave policy as a county that didn't exist, whether it was cultivating votes on an elder fraud unit, by the way, at the DA's office. Nobody was talking about that. Nobody was talking about that until I got into the office. Because guess what? I go to meetings, I go to neighborhood association meetings, I make sure that people know county government is relevant. And so when I learned at a senior citizens committee that police were arresting perpetrators of either elder abuse, or elder fraud, but the DA's office was not prosecuting those cases, what did I do? Problem solver goes into action one more time, right? Call the DA's office. Ask Joe Gonzalez to come down to my office. By the way, there was a 1,200 case backlog associated with elder fraud and abuse, and this is what I learned. I'm sorry, Commissioner, but we used to have somebody who was in this office, and they were really good at what they did. They were experts, but it's been vacant for 5 years. That's not acceptable. It's not. Like, how did we sit here before I got in office and say, we're just going to accept that? And so I asked Joe Gonzalez, what do you need? He said, well, quite honestly, Commissioner, we have nobody to advocate for it. Well, I have a 96-year-old dad who's been in the Air Force for a career, still drives his own car, still mows his own lawn, but is scammed every single day on the telephone or on the internet. That can't continue. And so the DA said, I need a prosecutor and I need an investigator. Because a lot of times there's a paper trail associated with these cases. If we really want to make a difference and move the backlog, I need money to appropriate that. And so guess what I did? I rounded up my fellow county commissioners, many of whom or all of whom were Democrats, to get that done. We now have a dedicated elder fraud and abuse unit in the DA's office. Folks, it was simple. I advocated for it. I listened. I saw a problem and said no more. Because guess what? The elderly don't have time to wait on restitution nor prosecution. And my dad is one of those folks. And that is the kind of thing I will stand up for as your next Bill County judge. We are going to closing statements, and you have to apologize. I have to apologize. I'm going to add one more question. One of the stories that I have followed the past few years has been children without placement. Many of them have mental health issues. We're sitting in San Antonio now facing this. There's people in Uganda tonight with a school district
on something that happened over someone with mental health issues? What will you do to take care of our children who are children without placement, staying in hotels? What can you do?
Well, obviously, that's in my wheelhouse. As the children's court judge and in charge of, I took responsibility for those, it's called CWAP, children without placement, living in hotels, and the CPS offices. And what I did is what I will do as your county judge. I said, let me talk to the kids directly. I don't want to hear from the adults. I want to hear from those kids that were 16, 17, 18 years old. They told me what they wanted. Most just wanted to go home. And what I did is, I did my very best to get the adults to say, why can't these children go home? They can't stay in a broken foster care system that's a result of the failed leadership in Austin. And so again, yes, the bully pulpit means I gotta go and advocate for those children and find and make sure they get the mental health services that they need. And that's the reason why I brought the public health entity, because public health needs mental health services and access to mental health. It also needs drug and alcohol rehabilitation. Those are the integral parts to deal with the children and families in our community, especially the CWAP children. Those children become trafficked. Those children will become going to the jail that the sheriff's deputies are going to have to take care of. They're going to be on the home. They're going to be homeless on the streets. That again, either SAPD or the sheriff's department is going to have to deal with. So what we need to do is be proactive. The big bold vision for me, for those children, is to partner up with the state and federal government to create a mental health institution, much like we did for the disabled military vets coming back from war, the Intrepid. Create a state-of-the-art, make it here in Bexar County to where we'll bring all the kids here. That's one thing I've always appreciated about Bexar County, San Antonio. We have heart, we have compassion, we take care of our children and families. And those children need to be taken care of. And so it is my commitment as county judge not to forget who I was, which was the children's court judge, and to always go back. And that's the reason why my platform, my issues, my conviction is focusing on those children and families, to be child-centered and family-focused, and take care of what's the most precious infrastructure of our community, and that's the children and families of our community. Thank y'all.
Thank you. This is a vexing and complicated problem here. And it's a passion project for me, honestly. And no disrespect, Peter, but you had a bully pulpit for 26 years as a children's court judge, and the foster system in Texas and here in Bexar County is still broken. One of my proudest moments on Commissioner's Court was appropriating money. In the bucket regarding ARPA money, I made sure I spoke up to make sure that we had money appropriated for the foster care system, because I do in my heart and in my soul and in my mind, believe that there is a huge opportunity here in Bexar County. I don't think we're going to fix it at the state, but I do think there's an opportunity here to really build a model for what is true foster care here in Bexar County. There can be a model based upon the conversations that I've had with people. You know, whether it's at Clarity and what they're doing there, whether it's at different folks and different entities that are focused on foster care, there is a unique opportunity. But you have to have an advocate. And there's nobody who's been a stronger advocate. And, you know, due respect, obviously, to Peter because of what he's been able to do. But the system is still broken. But I also come from a family and a mother who was raised by two alcoholic parents who eventually was taken away from her parents and raised in foster homes. I've said this not just here on the stage tonight, but I've also said it in the newspaper in an interview that was on the front page of the paper this weekend. She suffered abuse at the hands of foster families. So we can do better by the children of this county. But it starts with leadership, it starts with ideas, and it starts with advocacy, and it also starts with saying, we're not going to accept what's happening here. The rates of domestic violence that we have here, the rates of poverty that we have here, that contribute to the foster care problem that we have here. It is about being a CEO that is strategic and has a vision for how we carry this community forward for the next 20 to 25 years. Ladies and gentlemen, I can be dinged all day long by my opponent for bold, brave, better for bear, and a vision, but that is what it takes. And that is what I will bring to the office with more energy and more passion than you have ever seen in this seat before. Thank you.
Closing statements. We'll start with Commissioner DeBerry.
First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here again. Anytime that I can get up in front of an audience, and especially when it comes to law enforcement and we talk about crime and what's happening on the streets of San Antonio, there's a very, very stark comparison here. Again, I am not a professional politician. I've worked in the private sector, in a small business. I have had as many as 100 employees. And like I said, I laid awake at night sometimes. I've tried not to think about it, about sustaining that business and making sure that my employees' families have food on the table and you do what you have to do. Because let me just tell you, owning a small business and being a small business owner is not an easy job. Probably one of the hardest jobs. Because you never know what's going to happen, right? You sustain a business through good times and bad. So I've been through 2 different recessions with business. And we look at COVID and what happened. When we shut down small businesses, and if you talk to the judge today, Judge Wolf, he will tell you that he wrote it in a book. The biggest mistake he ever made during COVID was shutting down small businesses. They are the backbone of this economy. Whether you are a mom and pop shop and a restaurant, and I've worked alongside many of them. I've done something called Time with Trish, meaning I've worked alongside people, whether it's been at Las Palapas, on Southeast Military Drive, whether it's been at Lala's Gorditas, and I've sweated in the kitchen there too. You learn a lot from people about hard work. And that is what I've done all my life. I haven't lived off the government. What I've been doing is making a difference here, contributing to the economy, making sure that we're contributing not just to the economy, but creating jobs for people. And that's the most important thing that we can do, I think, really, in the wheelhouse of Bexar County Judge, as I make that distinguishing difference one more time. This is not a judicial position. My opponent has said he's never managed a budget before. This is what I've done for 25 years. I've managed a budget, I've looked at profit and loss statements, I figure out where we're going to cut the fat, how we got to rein things in from a spending standpoint, and how we move forward. And so what I'm committing to you today is, yes, bold, brave leadership. And leadership that is not in the best interest of those that are the haves. But it's also about leadership for the have-nots. When I talk about the poverty rate being the same that it's been since 1984, why have we stood for that? Why haven't we done better? Why haven't we merged the Metro Health Department and the University Health System of the county to really scale impact regarding health care? City-county consolidation, what does that look like? To save the taxpayer money, but also make sure we're scaling services, whether it's health care, whether it's animal care services, which, by the way, not only are we cutting people's ankles off in far too great a number due to diabetes, heart disease, and morbid obesity, but we're killing animals on the streets every single day because we're not scaling impact in a big way. We can do better, but what it's going to require is leadership. And so at the end of the day, saying no to economic development opportunities and not even looking at them or studying them is criminal. This is the kind of leadership that I want to bring to the table, because I'm not just a judge for a certain sector or a certain party. I'm a judge for everybody, because guess what? A rising tide floats all boats in the end, right? Yes? Yes, it does. And as we look at the future of Bexar County and what does that look like, it also means, by the way, one of the opportunities that exist is the utilities. How many of you were satisfied with the $31 rebate you got from CPS Energy? It's laughable. We have to have, and I've been advocating for 7 months since I started on this campaign. A third of CPS's revenue comes from outside the city of San Antonio, where a majority of the growth is occurring outside to the county limits and the county line, and the suburban cities. We have to have a seat at the table at CPS Energy. I'm not asking for revenue to the county yet. We might get there. But we at least need to have an ex officio position for the county judge. The mayor has one. Why doesn't the county? Because guess what? If we don't have that seat at the table, what is it? Let's go back to the lessons we learned at the Boston Tea Party. It is taxation without taxation. Yes! All day long. And so those are the things that I want to advocate for. But I'm going to wrap this up by telling you, we are here with the Deputy Sheriff's Association, and I'm just going to tell you one more time. There is no candidate on this stage that has advocated more from the heart, taken more heat, associated with advocating for the rank and file of the Deputy Sheriff's Association. I will, as your next Bexar County judge, again, make law enforcement a priority where it has not been a priority. I will make sure that our deputy sheriffs and men and women are paid for. And I will also make sure that the inhumane conditions of the Bexar County Jail that exist today don't. Because like I said, I knew I was making a difference standing up for the rank and file when I got letters every single day or a direct message on Facebook saying thank you for standing up for us. That is the kind of leadership they deserve, and that is the kind of leadership you deserve. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Thank you, Yami. Thank you, Deputy Sheriff's Association, for the opportunity to speak. As you see, we had a lively discussion tonight, and I appreciate Commissioner Berry. I see that we have very contrasting style, and we have contrasting personalities. And so I don't want perhaps my understated, my low-key personality to be underestimated about what this election is all about. I'm here to ask for your support. I'm here to ask for your vote. This election is about proven leadership. Proven leadership, being a public servant for nearly 40 years, 26 years as a judge who served with great distinction, with integrity, reputation, and credibility. Yes. Unfortunately, that has been under attack, and we'll move on. Because what's important is what I have done and my record. I want everybody to understand, I really haven't gone into my personal history because I really wanted to share with you what I stand for and what I believe and what the issues are and where I'm committed to. And I believe the Deputy Sheriff's Association understands that in my entire time as a public servant, I stand shoulder to shoulder with the men and women of law enforcement. And I will continue to do so. And I will do everything in my power to make sure that you're given the priority, that you're given the resources, that you're given the dignity and respect. I think that's what it's all about. People, that's what people want of government. Not the name calling, not the pointing of the fingers, not to say you're to blame or the party's to blame. Fix the frickin' problem. That's what people want. The late General Colin Powell said it best for me. Leadership is about connecting people. And that's what I bring to the table. Bringing people together, figuring what the problems are, and then finding the solutions. And I want to give credit tonight, first to my faith in God, and to my family. My family, my parents who have since passed, my mother and father, who in the days of the Rio Grande Valley, I think my sister Kathy's here, my wife Rachel Sakai, the women behind the Sakai team. And I wanted to say thank you for standing beside me and with me in this new bold adventure of running for county judge. And what's important to recognize is that my parents taught me these values. They taught me to work hard. They taught me to do things with integrity. They taught me to be humble and to do things with humility. And that's something I've always strived to do. And that's the proven leadership that you will get as your next county judge. A person who can deliver, deal with the problems, bring the expert, the stakeholders to the table, figure out what those solutions are, and then get the 3 votes on Commissioner's Court. And I think Deputy Sheriff, you understand that more than anybody. And so I am proud to stand here to say I've been endorsed by Commissioner Precinct 1, Commissioner Rebecca Clay Flores, Commissioner 2, Justin Rodriguez, Commissioner 4, Tommy Calvin. We're going to bring changes to that Commissioner's Court. We're going to bring dignity and respect to the table, not only to the deputy sheriffs, but to all the county employees that I was once part of. We got to make county government work. One thing I've made very clear to our budget office and our county management, I want better customer service. We don't give dignity and respect to our employees. We don't properly compensate them. We don't help them. We work with old technology, things that have been going on for
Ideas for the betterment of this county. Commissioner Trisha Berry, thank you for your bold ideas, big ideas, and Judge Sakai, thank you for sharing the perspective. Yami, thank you for moderating this event.
Thank you.
And we appreciate all of you tonight, and hopefully you'll just leave tonight with some more information to make your own decision. And thank you for participating in civic duty.
We also ask everybody to get a young person to sign up to vote.